Meanwhile, the New York Post editorial board out with the new op-ed this morning titled this, Biden's backdoor bid to open the door to legalize migrants. The op-ed goes on to say Biden has boosted the use of humanitarian parole programs to allow record numbers of migrants to enter the country and work here. He also ballooned the temporary protected status program, letting masses of newcomers take refuge in the United States outside the normal process. House Homeland Security Committee Republicans unveiled new border legislation yesterday targeting some of these policies. The Border Reinforcement Act would resume border wall construction, limit the Customs and Border Patrol One app to commercial purposes, and require Department of Homeland Security to release monthly data on known gotaways. Joining me right now is former acting U.S. Attorney General Matt Whitaker. Matt, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much. We've both been to the border and seen the disaster that it is right there. Why is it that this administration wants this wide open border?
Well, I think that's the million-dollar question right now is why is this administration allowing so many people into our country, many of them with statuses that are not only temporary, but are ultimately not going to be granted permanent residency or permanent citizenship. I think it can only be one thing, and that is to encourage everybody from around the world to be attracted to the United States, to come here, to settle, to have children, to do all the things that we've seen illegal immigrants through the last several decades because of this porous border that just doesn't effectively keep people out and doesn't allow us to manage our system of immigration, which if we don't fix it, I mean we're not going to have much of a country left.
Well, look, there's the ineptitude of policy, and we see that play out at the border. We see that play out in economic policy. We see that play out in the administration's foreign policy as well. But then there's the corruption end of it that we continue to zero in on. And Jonathan Turley has a great op-ed out in The Hill over the weekend, and it's titled this, Anthony Blinken and the Made Men of the Biden Administration. Turley writes of the 51 intelligence officials calling the Hunter Biden laptop story Russian disinformation right before the election. He writes, most have become silent after all the letter served its purpose, as Morrell indicated. That's Michael Morrell from the CIA. He testified saying to assist Biden in winning the election. What's in store for 2024? A.G. Whitaker, your thoughts on Anthony Blinken and whether or not you're going to see Republicans start investigating him. Remember, he was running the Penn Biden Center, which received all this money from China, we're told. Then he was the ringleader on the letter that these 51 intelligence agents signed. The Journal writes Joe Biden and the 51 spies of 2020. The New York Post writes the spies who lied. Your thoughts on Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, by the way. Jake Sullivan was out peddling the Russia collusion story for years, as you know. You and I lived it. And now he got a top job. Turley's calling him a made man as well. After doing the bidding for the Russia collusion story, getting Joe Biden elected, now he's the national security advisor. Made men.
Yeah. Well, and it's a really good point because neither one of those two has been under any kind of significant scrutiny. I think Blinken, who has been at the right hand of Joe Biden for many years, certainly has a lot of knowledge as to what Joe Biden has been doing, with his business dealings and with Hunter's business dealings. But these people are kept very close and, they're given these top spots, whether it's Secretary of State or whether it's National Security Advisor. In both cases, these folks have been witness to many of, the Biden family's crimes that have been committed. And in some cases, in Jake Sullivan's case, while he denies participating or having any knowledge, there's a direct witness now, this stenographer from the White House who served in multiple administrations that says, I was a direct witness as to how the Ukrainian money was moved and how that transaction and those transactions when Hunter was on the Burisma board, how those was a fraudulent transaction and how, Joe Biden's power was abused.
Well, that's the thing. You wonder how all of these people in the administration are willing to cover up all this money that was taken in that now we know of from the bank records that James Comer has made public. National Security Advisor Sullivan, as you say, about the Ukraine story, he's denying that he had a role in the Biden family's influence peddling operation in Ukraine. Here's what he said yesterday about it. Watch.
Former White House stenographer who this month outed you as a anonymous senior administration official. He says that you spoke about giving aid to the Ukrainian national gas industry just days after the second son had secretly joined the board of a Ukrainian gas company. Were you part of a corrupt influence peddling operation involving the Biden family in Ukraine or any other country?
No.
One answer, AJ, no. He wasn't part
and
of
it's also the question. It's also the question, Maria. I mean, were you a part of a corrupt influence peddling operation? Well, I mean, he can say no to that, but it doesn't mean he didn't participate or wasn't involved in the transaction. If you characterize it as something different, were you involved in giving money to Ukraine after Hunter was on this board? The answer is absolutely yes. And so I think, Jake has a lot more explaining to do in this regard, and so does Anthony Blinken regarding the Penn Biden Center and all the Chinese money that flowed. But, I think earlier you were talking about how soft Joe Biden has been on China. I think there's a reason. And the reason is that, he's received a lot of money from the Chinese Communist Party, and it's not allowing him to stand up and be firm against them.
Yeah, we've got evidence of tens of millions. We don't know how high it goes. Matt, thank you. Matt Whitaker joining us, former AG.